So, welcome everyone. I think more and more people will join slowly, but we can maybe get started. So, my name is Julia from the Institute of Technology Assessment and Systems Analysis from Germany, and I'm very happy to do another webinar with you. This is actually a kind of joint webinar today. So Janne and we coordinate, or we try to coordinate, the globalTA network, which is a global network on institutions and people, actually, a lot of people working in the area of technology assessment. We have over 30 members worldwide, and we do these webinars once in a while to exchange ideas and learn from each other. And similarly, I also coordinate a group in Germany on policy engagement, so science policy engagement. This is part of an initiative of the Ministry of Research, Technology, and Space. And we're a kind of working group that works in the area of, scientific advice for policy, let's say broadly. So I also welcome those who are here today from that group, and I'm really happy that we can join each other. So we're a bit of a colorful group, I guess. Maybe if you like, you can mention your name and affiliation. Some people have done that already. Maybe also where you are and what time it is there, so we know if people how awake people are, maybe or not. So yeah, thanks again for joining. We'll have a presentation from Linda and Laura, about 15 minutes, which we will record, but then we'll have a lot of time for discussion, about 45 minutes, I guess, to discuss, to ask questions, to exchange, which I will not be recording. So that's kind of more of an open space. So yeah, we're really happy to have Linda and Laura from the Finnish Academy of Science and Letters. This is quite an interesting academy and fits very well into, I think, what many of us are doing because they promote scientific research, but also try to really use high quality research for decision making. And this is also a main project and interest, I guess, of Linda and Laura, um, who will introduce more on the academy, I guess, on themselves, but also the method of science sparing that they use. I listened to their presentation a few weeks ago and found it really fascinating. So I'm really happy we have them here because this is really a quite excuse me, a quite innovative method, I think, to really identify risks, possible risks of policies in an early stage in a proactive way. So I'm really glad that you're here. Before I cough even more, I'll hand over to you, Linda and Laura. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Let me just put the sharing on before I start. No. Can you just confirm that you can see the slides and they
Yeah, looks
change?
great.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
perfect.
So thank you very much, Julia, for the lovely introduction. It's nice to see also some familiar faces in the group, and it's thank you for the invitation. So my name is Linda Lammensalo, and together with Laura, we work at the Finnish Academy of Science and Letters as knowledge brokers. So we'll structure this roughly 15 minutes in a way that we mostly focus on our method science sparring that Julia also mentioned already. But I'll start with a brief introduction of our organization and why actually we do knowledge brokering. So both of our actually titles are knowledge brokers, and what we mean by this is our job is really to work at the interface of science and policy and strengthen collaboration and cooperation between researchers and policymakers here in Finland primarily. And our organization, Finnish Academy of Science and Letters, has this kind of unique position to work at this intersection. So we are independent expert organization that is also self-funded, which gives us kind of this unique, independent, neutral role to work at the intersection. We have nationally over 800 researchers that are part of our academy, but then also internationally 150 approximately researchers. So we have this kind of wide network of researchers that are behind the Academy of Science and Letters, but we also work with all researchers nationally. And we approach knowledge brokering in quite ambitious way. So we want to make Finland the world's leading country in evidence-informed policymaking. And how we do this is we really try to look at what are the models and methods for doing knowledge brokering and how that can be improved to strengthen the evidence-informed policymaking. We have developed some methods to do this. For example, science sparring is one of them, and I will go into detail of that a little bit later. But beyond science sparring, we also work on strengthening knowledge brokering capacities and networks nationally. So we started by kind of supporting researchers in their knowledge brokering capacities in research impact journey. And then we've kind of moved now towards strengthening knowledge brokers' capacity to act in this interface. For example, we coordinate a national network of over 100 knowledge brokers that regularly meets and kind of shares and offers peer support to work on this field. And then we've developed knowledge synthesis, particularly in close collaboration with the Finnish Prime Minister's office. Most often these are really rapidly done, some even in 2 weeks' time, to kind of provide multidisciplinary research evidence to any knowledge need that arise from the policymaking side. Most recently, we've also started to pilot with AI, like I'm sure many of you as well. So we've jumped into that board of and hype on that. But Laura and I work primarily on the science sparring model, which essentially is policy red teaming. And we started the development of this concept or this model approximately 2019 in close collaboration with national ministries, particularly the Prime Minister's Office and the Ministry of Environment. And in that kind of start, we recognized that much of science advice kind of follows this question and answer logic, starting from questions, is linear by its nature. And while it is good for some instances, particularly for systematic, complex policy problems, it does not really meet always the need, particularly in policy topics where there isn't necessarily clearly formulated questions. So we often found from policymakers that seemed to be a kind of like frustration or mismatch between what they requested and what they got from researchers. So we started to look if there's another way of approaching this science advice. And that's how we kind of came up with the concept of science sparring, that instead of starting from question, actually kind of inverts the logic of science advice and starts from the assumptions, the hypotheses that are at the early policy drafting stage and brings multidisciplinary research to challenge them. So kind of use early policy drafts as boundaries for structured critique. So the model itself is kind of interactive and iterative way of stress testing the quality of the policies. So we really understood that science sparring could be something, a model to identify risks related to policymaking more systematically and proactively. And we've been developing this concept, like I mentioned already, for quite many years. And we've trialed it in very different policy contexts, particularly in agenda setting stage. We've looked at impact assessment stage. We looked at when policymakers have kind of tried to answer what sort of policy direction they want to take in. So we tried the method in very different stages. And what we learned from those pilots is that it has this potential to really improve the quality of legislative drafting by simulating this adversarial science policy environment, but in a constructive setting. So it's in this situation, it's demonstrated its impact and effectiveness. And for example, recently the government's consultation guide actually recommended it as a like a low level, low threshold level model to incorporate researchers' perspectives to the legislative drafting. And we kind of think that it's a way to future-proof policies by bringing researchers' expertise at a very early stage. And maybe to give a concrete example, at the start of October, we actually had at this kind of agenda setting stage, we did a science sparring with the National Emergency Services of Finland. So they had not previously really looked at how Earth system tipping points influence preparedness policies. So in this situation where they were looking like how in a highly uncertain policy environment, how does that change their perspective on how to organize preparedness for national preparedness strategies? We brought researchers from different disciplines to kind of understand what uncertainties, what risks, or what assumptions in the current preparedness policies are flawed if in the situation that these Earth system tipping points are crossed. So this kind of provides us to a way to surface these gaps in the national emergency services, identify risk assumptions, and really enable this real-time discussion of alternatives, how to prepare or future-proof their perspectives and policies. And this science sparring itself kind of, or how this stress testing has been developed is that we've actually been quite inspired by the concept of red teaming, which maybe many of you know from the intelligence or kind of security community has used this concept for a long time. And what this means for us is that by making this kind of goal-oriented science sparring process, we actually try to avoid staying in this known in the top left-hand corner of just having this science policy dialogue where we only talk about the self-evident things that everybody already kind of knows. So we use this framework of red teaming to really go deeper into the flaws or flawed assumptions or knowledge gaps that exist in the early policymaking drafts. And how we do this in practice is that at the start, as knowledge brokers, we really spend quite a bit of time in identifying what the knowledge need from the policymakers actually is, what knowledge is needed, what knowledge they don't need. And once we've identified that, we move towards this in the workshop with researchers and policymakers, we move towards this kind of sense making, this kind of diagnostic phase where we bring different expertise together to understand what's missing from the policy draft. And once we've done that sense making, we move towards the top right-hand corner to identify gaps that have been missing. We challenge the assumptions that are evident in the policy draft. We critically critique them, and we try to understand how the policy draft could be vulnerable to uncertainties that lay in the future. So that's kind of the future proofing part of the science sparring. And ideally, in this explorative space, we reach towards the bottom right-hand corner, unknown unknowns. Of course, that's a quite difficult place to find ourselves in, but that's kind of what direction we want to take this method, to kind of identify those black swans that nobody else would have thought about, but in this science policy collaborative dialogue space we can actually find. And so I mentioned that we've been doing this work already since 2019. We've actually done this nine out of 12 ministries, and we've had quite a number of researchers and civil servants participating. We've also used this in city level and regional level, and even with 6 journalists. So in different piloting in different stages and different kind of settings. And why we think it works, because we think that it does work, is that we prioritize the policy relevance. So identifying the knowledge need together with the policymakers and anchor the discussions towards that. So it's kind of goal-oriented process. The second thing that makes it work is that we really anchor the discussion on the early profit policy draft. So the preparatory document that kind of help us to avoid discussing different things. It anchors the discussion into the same topic and really like helps us to go in depth in the discussion. The third strength is our focus is on multidisciplinarity, which is particularly suitable for systemic policy problems. So it helps us to identify risks more systematically from different perspectives. And our roles as knowledge brokers is really to build this like trust between the participants that is really central for this kind of explorative space where actually quite a lot of trust is needed for even the policymakers to open up their early draft and early thinking to researchers' critique. So that's our role, is to ensure that everyone is really comfortable in that. And the workshops that are part of this science sparring process are always closed doors, so that kind of also strengthens this explorative space. But I'll give the floor now to Laura to go over the practical elements.
Thank you, Linda. You can continue to next slide. So what happens in a grassroots level, so to say, when we, and now when I say we, I mean me and Linda, who've been developing this, I think together now over a year, we've done 9 sparrings together. When we hear the knowledge need or the knowledge need finds us, we use quite a long time to specify the knowledge need. Together with the policymakers, we try to find out what knowledge there already is and what kind of knowledge they really need. And uh, during that time, we often hear maybe 2 or 3 most like how should I say, really relevant researchers who the policymakers already know from their policy field. We contact them and we try to find 5 to 6 researchers, and maybe there has been one policymaker who contacted us, but maybe from that group in the ministry or other ministries, we try to map out also 5 policymakers to take part in the workshop. And in our piloting or testing process, the sparrings altogether, like one sparring, usually takes 2 to 12 months. Of course, if it's 1 year, we are not doing it every day. We are waiting maybe the policy preparation process to go on, or maybe there is something that needs to be done before the workshop. And we've usually, when we talk about science sparring workshops, there's 1 or 2, and they are maybe 3 to 6 hours, and that's kind of the climax of the process. But we, as knowledge brokers, we facilitate the workshop, but also after it, we document the insights, and we ask researchers who take part in the sparring workshop to validate the final synthesis before it's published. We can continue. And I think for past 6 months, at least, as Linda already said in the beginning, we've also jumped to this AI ship and piloting and trying to find out what are the key maybe tools that we could use in science sparring. And what we've noticed is that usually in science for policy field, maybe AI is used to synthesize large bodies of written knowledge, but we try to implement AI tools in steering science policy dialogues. So maybe in a live setting where researchers and policymakers are in dialogue, how can we add some input from AI? And together with all the university here in Helsinki, we are developing an AI-powered process to enhance the red teaming. So not just to get input for the dialogue, but try to really challenge ourselves and the AI to build something on or maybe challenge the topics that researchers are raising in the sparring workshop. And something that we want to find out is that could AI find the theory of change behind the policy draft, for example, or if I put it in other words, the logic that policymakers have are using in their preparatory process, and what when AI presents this logic to workshop participants, how that could add to their thinking and the dialogue. And we want to find out how AI adopts these diverse analytical perspectives through something that we call archetypes, so such as systems thinkers or optimists or pessimists. So when we kind of highlight for the participants these different angles, maybe the structured critique or stress testing could go deeper. But this is something that we are testing at the moment, so it's going on. And what's coming up? We are here in Finland. We are organizing Science Sparring Masterclass that starts in next January. But in English, we are going to publish this handbook that we also use in Masterclass that really puts in a one piece the development work that we've been doing here in the academy. And also, we noticed that we need more testing and piloting in different contexts, especially in political and EU level. I think we are like 2 minutes over our time, but thank you for your attention.
All good. Thank you very much, Laura and Linda. That was really fascinating. I think there are quite a few questions. Thanks again. I'm going to stop with the recording, but if you have questions, I already see them going up. Okay.